Yo. Hold on. There we go. Even Paul finds foul to that old intro there. Yes, but hello, everybody. Welcome. It is Thursday. It is 9, so of course it's UK Cowboys time. How we doing, guys? Guys.
I'm a wee bit slow tonight, but obviously, as you may have just noticed just there, I completely messed up the introduction there.
It's beautiful. That means we've all done it now. Oh, yeah.
Everyone else all right?
The other two want to talk, yeah?
Yeah. I was like, what the fuck?
Just me and Paul talking?
We're just all a bit giddy that DQ is staying.
Yes.
So I'm sure we'll get into that.
We'll talk right into that in just a moment. But yes, guys, we are officially fully into the off-season program. Unfortunately, we were into it sooner than we was expecting. Last week, Fan Rant, absolutely, as always, that show is always one of the most popular shows. That I wonder why, mind you, is so popular, but it gets a chance for everybody to get it off their chest, and now we can move on. So now we're into the draft series. Before then, we get into the off-season program, moving to season 4, where it's going to be bigger and better. A lot of plans on that one. But this week, it's a free agent review. Going to look at all the Cowboys free agents, who will take, who will keep. I've got valuations on all the players, so if you say the price is right, I can hit you with that. No escape this time. But yes, we'll get into all of that. We'll do the news and updates in a second. But before I hit that, I thought I'd ask you guys, right out of the bat, because we're into the draft series, I'm going to say right now, the world is your oyster at pick 24. Who you taking?
If Linderbaum's there, definitely him.
Okay.
Yep.
Grazios?
I think.
Oh yeah, go on.
I think Green from Texas A&M is probably the top guard, and I think we need to address one of the interior offensive line positions. We don't know if the problem last year with with Connor Williams was that Biadasz was the weak link, or whether Connor Williams was the weak link and he was affecting Biadasz's style, because obviously one of those was having to adapt to the weakness of the other. And that's where the defenses were teeing off on. I mean, PFF amazingly has the grade for Connor Williams is 76, which is actually quite
average.
Something like this, 16th guard in the league or something like that. So,
it's average.
Yeah, but obviously the score for Biadasz is pretty poor. So one of those positions needs to be determined anyway.
Which is quite funny when you look back. Biadasz's, if you look at his last few games before the season ended, he's probably the best offensive lineman in that line at the time. He's doing quite well. Oh, go on, Paul. I can see you're itching to say something there.
The whole talk about Connor Williams, I completely disagree. If he's still making mistakes, like if he's making so the way I'm seeing it, right, when you've got Travis Frederick and you had Tyron Smith on your side, and if you were making lesser mistakes and stuff like whatsoever, that how much is that really down to the fact that Tyron and Travis were basically covering up his mistakes, so to speak? You know what I mean? Like, we're now actually seeing him, like, when our old, like it was the same as last year. He was causing a lot of problems because we had Biadasz here and we didn't have pretty much Tyron for the whole season. But with this season more in particular, it's like, you know, like I'm sure I keep saying, like, I'm sure Connor was a nice guy, but I just don't think he's good enough. I really don't. Like, and I've been critical of him since day one. since day one. Like, you can have the best guards, man. They can probably put the cover on you to, like, I'm trying to find the right words to really describe it here. Like, to cover up your own mistakes, like you don't normally would see, but we're actually seeing that a lot more now because our O-line is that more diminished now. So that's why I'm saying goodbye to Connor right now. I would move on from him, get away from him.
Here's a question for you though, right? That the offensive line, obviously this season, it was okay, tailed off pretty quick. The season before and the season before that, relatively pretty much the same offensive line, bar one or two players, i.e. Tyler Biadasz. Connor Williams has played most part, Zach Martin, Lyle Collins. Do you think that in the space of those 2 years, they've forgotten how to play the position all of a sudden, that they've forgotten how to do it? Or do you think perhaps we've had a coaching problem and they're being coached the wrong way?
Yeah. I would kind of tend to agree with that. And Lauren made a really great point a couple of weeks ago. He feels like I think it was yourself that said it's like it feels though that the way our offensive O-line coaching has become right now has become a lot more softer. And I do tend to agree with that. I don't see the tenacity. We're not seeing the pure grittiness of our O-line once was when we had DeMarco Murray as our running back. When we had him as our running back and how our O-line was run back then, it's like those guys would open up we would make DeMarco Murray run over 4,000 yards that season back in 2014. Or was it 2014 the year the playoff, the no catch year? Yeah. And you can see the difference in that offensive line that year. Like that,
very athletic,
very tenacious, like very willing to put just willing to drive people down to the ground. We're not seeing
gets
that.
To the second level.
We're not seeing that anymore.
And you think though that you take away Travis Frederick, yeah. Connor Williams was in there too. Maybe not back in 2014, but if you go back a couple of seasons, that they were all showing that level of athleticism and getting into the backfield and not backfield, but into the second level, throwing those hands up and getting inside into the defensive bodies and creating these massive gaps. And then all of a sudden this year they've forgotten how to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
There has to be something common. Because bear in mind, right, Zach Martin, we talk about how amazing he is. He had quite a bad season, especially against the 49ers. Well, he got beat. He was whiffing.
Yeah. Of all of his seasons, it's probably one of his best ones for sure. But even still, he was still without a doubt our best offensive lineman, hands down.
Yeah.
Yep.
But then again, if you go back to the 49ers game, Tyler Biadasz was probably the best offensive lineman in that game.
But this is I'm just talking from a season perspective, like here. But,
yeah.
But for Zach Martin, how many times have he tried to cover up Biadasz mistakes, and he's the one that's been caught out by trying to cover up for someone else?
Yeah,
and this is what I mean. It's like the O-line is a chain. If one of those links are broken, you're trying to salvage it to try and keep it connected, and that seems to be what was the case this year. It's like whatever link was broken, someone was trying to overcompensate and try and cover someone else's ass, pretty much, and that's what. And it shouldn't have to be like that. Like there was no unison within our O-line at all. Yeah. Even though, we still got over 1,000 yards from Zeke. We still had a good, decent amount of yardage. Well, so let me add an injured Zeke. Let me just add that. We've also had Tony Pollard. I still thought he had a good season.
Injured as well.
So when you play those factors into it, but how many times, though? Here's the thing. How many times did our running backs fail to get past the line of scrimmage? And that's the number one problem I had this year. And that's what a lot of people are criticizing, putting more blame on the running backs towards the O-line. But it's the O-line's job to open up those gaps and make those blocks. But that's just not happening right now.
And you can almost go back to last year as well. We gave the O-line the benefit of the doubt because there was so many combinations that they used. But that was a Philbin offensive line last year as well. And last year we were talking that, Zeke was getting tackled at 2 yards in the backfield and still managing to get to the line of scrimmage. So this, and obviously, if you've been listening to the draft shows, a few people have pointed out in the comments there that I had a question raised tonight. I've still to properly listen to the show, but obviously Broadus has been advocating the last couple of shows that Philbin needs to be gone, and
I agree. And that was where I was trying to go with it. I was trying to lead.
I'm sorry for changing. Sorry, can I kind of just change the topic of the main question on it? But yes, Philbin needs to go. I think we need a new approach to the O-line coaching.
Just some aggression in there. But sorry, go on.
No, the problem is he is best friends with McCarthy, so it is a McCarthy coaching hire, and that's where we've got the problem. So, but I mean, it's almost like when we had Paul Alexander, the ex-Cincinnati coach that came in and tried to teach all of our guys how to use leverage more than using pure power, and obviously he lasted about 5 weeks, and then Garrett canned him and brought in Colombo and brought Hudson Hook back in as well. So, we're certainly the last 2 years we've seen it tailing off. Last year we obviously gave them the benefit of the doubt, COVID, injuries, whatever. This year you don't have that, and surely when they're doing the off-season evaluation, I'd be talking about making a change now.
Yeah. Especially how you're seeing other offensive lines with not so much more studied names, for example, or with a more not as higher priced running back out there. They're still doing their business out there. It just comes to show it is down to the coaching end of the day as well.
The coaching is everything.
Absolutely.
Especially your position coaches. That's what it all is. They instill what the coordinators are trying to get into them.
And that's the thing. You can put as much blame onto the players, to a certain extent, but it's down to the play calling, to the coaches, to how they're being coached, how the drills are being drilled. It's all down to them. If they're not being coached right to their strengths and not against their weaknesses, then you're bound to get issues.
Yeah. And when you look at how they played, especially with the slow starts, you say if they're coming out the block slow, that's preparation, bad preparation, where they're going in with a plan A, they don't have a plan B, and they're trying to figure it out on the fly, especially with the O-line. When you think we get to the 49ers game in the playoffs and we still haven't decided who our best five are, in what position, we were still jiggling around figuring it out. You would think within the first quarter of the season, you figured out who those guys are, and you need to, because those five guys, if anything, your five offensive linemen as a unit, I'm not saying individually players, but as a unit, your five offensive linemen need to be the most cohesive throughout the season.
That was one thing that bothered me the most, but I don't think that bothered me more than it bothered Graham. Like Graham was, I don't know how many times you were absolutely going if you're not about that, Graham.
Yeah. I mean,
they need to be a team.
I mean, you could argue that the entire left side, our offensive line,
was the issue.
Yeah, it's pretty much the left side. Yeah,
it was.
I mean, as much as I love Tyron Smith, whether it's a regression or simply down to his body, it's not there anymore. I called it at the start of the season. Tyron Smith, by hook or by crook, one way or another, Tyron Smith is not a 17-game-a-season player.
Yep.
That is not my personal opinion. That is fact.
Yep.
That is in the stats, and it's been in the stats for
4 years at least.
I thought
2014 think
Aye.
was
Really? Is that long?
Yeah.
It's been 7 seasons?
Yeah.
yeah, something like that.
Oh, no.
2014, 2016, one of those years. It was
Yeah.
the last time we played the full 16 games.
My biggest criticism was again a point that Big Game James brought up when he was on the show. Our best offensive lineman did not finish the season. Our best 5.
Best 5.
Terrence Steele was easily. Wow, I can't believe I'm saying these words. But Terrence Steele was easily one of the best 5, and he did not play.
Yeah.
Now, fair enough. He's not a center. He's not a guard. But if you want to get your 5 best on the field, you find a way.
Yeah. We spoke about Terrence Steele when Heckma Harrison was on the show, and he was like, "I'm not so sure." But even then, we were looking at it and going, "We're telling you." And turns out, that's what they should have stuck with.
And he turned out and round and says, he starts to see that now. And, and the thing is with Steele is like he completely blown us away. Like from when you compare him to the last season to now, it's like he's completely 180. He's completely like done the right things from the off season, went to the right off season coaching. I can't remember the name of the guy that you mentioned, Lone. You mentioned him last week.
Duke Manyweather.
That's the guy. And he spent time with him, developed his body more for the position, whether it's going to be guard or whether it's going to be tackle and that. But by God, I thought he did a great job, and I think he earned his right. I thought he earned his right to play that position after the whole. We can go into the whole Lyle Collins situation as well. Like, to me, Collins has lost the trust of the backroom staff because of that, and I don't know why he was thrown back in to a position where he's not played five straight games and just expected to be like that. Like, I don't know. And mentally he was off as well, and I think he was one of the biggest culprits during our San Francisco game. Like, he was getting beat quite a lot in that San Francisco game.
Yeah.
And we was. I mean, they all were getting with it, and they weren't even blitzing.
No,
they were just doing 4-man rushes. And
I'm just trying to remember.
You would think.
How many? I think was it two blitzes they ran for that whole game, and that was
just
it.
Just
the one.
There you go.
One blitz.
That just shows it all, like how weak.
And we couldn't contain them. Those 5 guys couldn't contain those 4 guys.
I know.
And when you think that Bosa was, they got 4 sacks after
gone
Bosa
for most
came
of
off
it.
The pitch.
Yeah. And they seem to get worse once Bosa left.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which makes no sense. But here's one, guys. Right, we'll get to the news and updates, and then we'll hit the free agent review, and we'll get your thoughts and opinions. But we'll hit the news and updates, and then we'll crack on with it. Okie dokie. So it is fairly straightforward on the news and updates this week. So first of all, big one, which had Cowboys nation talking quite wildly, was Sean Payton from the 49ers retired, finished. He's done for the season. 49ers, did I say? Saints.
Jesus.
Yeah. Sorry, still got 49ers on my mind. Yeah, so finished with the Saints. Obviously, there's a big Dallas connection. A lot of people are saying, get him away. And Jerry does love Payton. He was the assistant head coach here for a period of time. And he still has, I believe it's in North Texas, he has a property, which he pretty much has had the entire time. So there's a lot of connection with Dallas. The only thing I would say is, although I think the fit in terms of him as a head coach here, I just wonder how much... what's the word I'm looking for? How much, because he's been with the Saints for as long as we can remember. I mean, he's been there a long time.
15 years?
Yeah. I was going to say, I can remember I was in the Air Force at the time, going away, and Drew Brees and Sean Payton being the big topic, because they literally yanked the New Orleans Saints out of the gutter. Really, when you think about it, they had nothing but failure until he turned up with Drew Brees. And he didn't even draft Drew Brees.
Well,
no. Trade.
Yeah.
Hellman had a stat on the draft show earlier this week that, in all the years up until Peyton became head coach, New Orleans had got to playoffs 4 times So I think 1976 was when they came into
Wow.
being. So from
Yeah.
1976 to 2006, that was they'd made
All
it
they
4
had.
times, and those 4 times, obviously, the 49ers won the division. They got in as the wild card, and they were one and done. They didn't win their first playoff game until 2006.
Crazy.
And then
The rest is history.
Peyton
Yeah.
has had them there 9 years.
Yeah.
And taking them to the Super Bowl as well. And you could
Super Bowl
argue
playoffs.
you could argue, but for the referee screwing them in the
49ers. Oh no, yeah, the Rams, wasn't it?
Rams game.
Yeah,
Still incredible.
Yep.
Absolutely incredible.
I mean, you say that we have bad luck with the referees, or
Oh God,
Sean Payton's definitely had that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But
like, look at the Vikings game. That was, the Minneapolis Miracle. I mean,
well, that was not on Sean Payton. That was on a player's bad.
Yeah. But I'm just saying that in their playoffs, that's the type of games they have. Just these, they're always memorable, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? It is lots and lots of fun with him being it. Whether he comes to Dallas, I don't know. Certainly, I don't think it will be the 2022 season, if anything ever was to happen.
No.
Mike McCarthy is cemented. He's got a foundation year now at the moment, and I think, as much as people are arguing, although that seat is toasty, Mike McCarthy's seat is toasty at the moment. I can't see him going anywhere.
I'm sorry, but I can understand why it would be toasty, but at the same time, I'm just like, it's been a great progression since he's got here.
That's right.
That's right. Like, take it from the whole general perspective again. Like,
NFC East champion.
Right, yeah. So we've won the NFC East, right, which is fine, right. But since McCarthy's got here, he's taken over a Jason Garrett era, whatever. Scott Linehan, blah. Like, the only thing he kept obviously was Kellen Moore. We can always talk about that as well. Like,
that's next.
But the point is, like, from these two on, it's been slowly progression. Like, yeah, we had a really terrible season. Yes, we lost Dak. Yes, whatever. But when you look at it from the overall perspective, it has been a progression. We have drastically improved this year, as defensively, especially with the acquisition of Dan Quinn. With our like that. Did you say our offense is still a wee bit on the edge? Yeah, but as an overall collective, we have improved. Is there still more room for more improvement? Absolutely. But the matter of fact is, it's like the media and all the stats were saying, "Oh, we had the number one offense, we had the number one this and that." But at the same time, we were being the most harshest critics of our own team. Like, we're not satisfied. We're never, and in a way, we're rightly so. We shouldn't be. We demand, like, with the players that we've got in that team and that roster, we demand execution and perfection every time. But we weren't.
I was hoping you'd bring this up, Mike. You love a stat. I dropped a stat in our private chat. So these are from. These are from Wikipedia, basically, right? So don't quote me, but someone's.
No, we will. You're quoting them, so we will.
Sean Payton won Super Bowl and a postseason record of .529.
See, this is the thing I wanted to mention, Graham.
I know where you're going. Yeah.
Mike McCarthy won Super Bowl, postseason record of .526.
It's not much difference.
Now, why is Mike McCarthy away down here and Sean Payton's away up here? I don't understand it.
See,
I think it's more the rosters that they've both done it with. The Green Bay have always done it with a better roster, but then that goes to show about roster composition. The control of their players. It's all coaching management.
Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara. Drew Brees, I'm not duds.
Drew Brees, yeah. No. Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, the quarterbacks that they both had, they both done them with very red hot quarterbacks. But yeah, that is interesting. But moving on, though.
My main point is that there seems to be a romanticism around Sean Payton because he has a Dallas connection.
Yeah,
but
there is that.
We talk about it in UK football all the time. Just because you know the club that you're joining doesn't mean you're going to be an instant success.
Yeah, well, here's a prime example, and Graham won't understand this one. So Celtic signed a player called James McCarthy, who is a lifetime Celtic supporter. But I don't like if just because he's a lifelong Celtic supporter doesn't really give him the right to say he's going to be absolutely fantastic. You know what I mean? So, and the same with those, but it doesn't matter if you're like, say for example, you've always supported the Dallas Cowboys your whole life, but you're not the best player in the world. It doesn't mean necessarily you should be given the right to be there. Like how many players have we actually had in Dallas where they've not necessarily been Cowboys fans as kids, but it same goes with the NFL. It's like you get drafted where you get drafted, you get signed with. It's like you should take your own personal support away from it because you're there to do a job. As end of the day, you're there to do a job. And,
sorry, mate, I know you wanted to move on from this subject, but I just feel like see all the criticism being levelled at Mike McCarthy because the Cowboys weren't ready for the wild card round. I'm sorry, if you're paid $500,000 a week plus, it's not up to you whether you're motivated or not. You have to be motivated. I don't need see if I'm getting a paycheck for $1 million a game. I don't need a head coach to fire me up. Absolutely not. If you're being paid, if you're a Cowboys player and you need motivation after receiving your $500,000 paycheck, I'm sorry, you shouldn't be on the team because that's not good enough for me. Yeah. I mean, level it. Fans can level it at Mike McCarthy all they like, but he can't go on and execute the plays. It's the Cowboys offense that we should be targeting at.
Yeah. And again, this is where I'm kind of getting at. It's like it's between that player responsibility and the coaching responsibility. It's like it is. Well, for me, I do tend to think like there is blame to be thrown shade at like Dak and CeeDee Lamb for not making the important catches he's made. The O-line not making their blocks, but at the same time, it goes back to what we're kind of going about, like the coaching side. But that's what I was kind of getting at.
Yeah. But in sticking with our news and updates, in other news, Callum Moore looks like he'd be staying as OC. Been to his interviews, had his talks. No offers, so he's continuing to stay. In other news, Mike Parsons this week got both Defensive Rookie of the Year and Rookie Player of the Year. So that's a good one. That is a good one. Also,
no brainer.
Oh yeah. Also in other news, and I'll get to the big news in a second. Don't forget Super Bowl party, UK Cowboys Super Bowl party. That will be in this year. We're taking it on the road to Glasgow. So there it is. Make sure you get your accommodation, your travel, and most importantly, all your documentation or passes for COVID, etc., etc. We don't know what's going to happen there.
Well, as far as we know, as far as we know, things are starting to get lifted, so it's on the good side of things now. So
yes,
we'll confirm more things as it leads up to the more closer to the time. But as far as we know, it's looking much more lighter on the restriction side of things.
Yep.
So it's all go. Pretty much the event's all sorted. It's all but just need to get you guys to come over and join the party.
We have everything organised, and me and Paul have the party room. Just so you're aware, the hotel room is Mike and Paul's room. We've got the cigars are on order, the whiskey's in, the tequila's in. I'll sleep in the bath, mate. Don't worry. But in other news as well, with UK Cowboys, we have a signed Dak jersey raffle. All the members of UK Cowboys.
Where did we pull that one off?
It's up there. Get over there. It's up. Get your name
I think
down. Get it on there.
I think all the slots are taken. No,
Are they taken?
Lauren bought half of them.
But
man.
don't you worry. Don't worry.
How did I miss out on that?
See, you got
I want the second prize. I want the Bob Lilly shirt.
the Bob Lilly. Not to worry. We will try and move and jiggle some things around and get that sorted. But there is more raffles, off-season shenanigans and fun. The Dak jersey and the Bob Lilly jersey is up at the moment. So that's a lot of fun. In other news as well that has come out, somebody asked us the question last week, do you see anyone being franchise tagged? There was serious consideration about Dalton Schultz getting it. They are looking at Dalton Schultz and thinking of giving him the franchise tag. We'll get to that in a moment. But in biggest news, probably of the off-season so far for the Cowboys, Dan Quinn stays. He is staying as a Cowboy. There has been a financial incentive from what we've heard, but obviously there would be. But bear in mind, which has come out just recently, he has been as well awarded Assistant Coach of the Year.
There we go.
No brainer.
There we go, Chris. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
My guess being that he doesn't want to go to a project and have to start again. I think he's just enjoying being where he is.
Yeah,
you just don't know what drives these things with some coaches.
Yeah, because here's the thing: you see all these teams with that were interviewing him. There's so much uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
Within their offense, within their defense, like Giants, Jags, Bears. Who was the other team? Broncos.
Yes.
Yeah. So those four teams, potentially those teams could probably do something. And I'll tell you something though. I know I'm kind of jumping ship, but the acquisition of Jacksonville, I think they've made the right choice. For the OC from Tampa.
Yeah. Well, it's always tricky. I always find coaching hires very tricky to judge. But it is interesting that he's there and that he's staying.
Yes.
News on the contract and all the rest of it is important. But I think what bodes most importantly is when you think last year, it was a massive defensive draft. When you look at the players, that it was nearly an all defensive player draft. Yeah. And when you think that the coach has quite a lot of say on who he wants to draft, so he's coached his players. So if Dan Quinn was to go, those players he drafted last year have now got a serious level of development that they have to go through. He stays, so they're his guys he's going to try and bring up.
Mike, I had to bring up this comment from DJ Dog, and this is a really great point. It's like Quinn staying for free agency is going to have massive influence on players to stay. Yep. Massive.
Well, you also think that Joe Witt Jr. is in line for a couple of the DC positions that are going
correct.
As well.
Yeah, so I've seen that floating around.
If we'd lost Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr., then God knows what our defense we could be looking at another Mike Nolan style defense next year. Thankfully, we've got Quinn back. We can risk losing Joe Witt Jr. Maybe get somebody else in to cover him. Now that all the there's been so much upheaval as to who's got the job, who's got these jobs. Everything's now starting to fall into place. And we talk that Kellen Moore at the moment has been missed out, but I mean that report that's saying he wasn't being in consideration, that was before Sean Payton announced that he was stepping away. So that's another position.
But I heard they're going to bring the DC up.
Yeah, they're talking about promoting from within, but I think who's the other one? There is somebody that they're talking about interviewing as well from outside, and obviously they've got to do a couple of minority candidates for the Rooney role anyway. So, but you never know. Kellen might have a chance there as well. But
yeah. So of course, that's news and updates for now. And what I thought we'd do is, because next week is going to be all heavy looking at prospects, You know me, I've got my draft board. It's up as we speak. In fact, I might bring it to Glasgow with me so Paul can clap an eyeball. He'd be very impressed. He loves this stuff. My draft board is all up now. But go on.
I'll be too drunk to even read it. Let's be honest.
Yeah, this is true. This is true.
But I had to bring up Chris's comment here. I was like, you know what? I'm actually not against that, to be honest, because I think we need every bit of inch of help for the old line right now. So it wouldn't surprise me.
You know, there's worse ways to build an old line. You basically take just 1, 2, 3 offensive linemen and see who sticks. To be perfectly honest,
yeah.
I mean, I can think of worse ways to do it.
I'm not opposed to the idea of drafting, mind, a wide receiver in the second round.
No.
Think about it. Think about this. Gallup's out for the season. Gallup's out for this. It could be out for this, or the most part. Yeah. It's certainly the start, and the strength of your team is your receiver core. Although we'll talk about Cooper in a moment. Build strength on strength. Every team tries to go down a road of what's your strongest position.
Sorry, Mike, you're getting outnumbered here in the comments.
That's all right. That's okay. But all I'm saying is be prepared, because it's something that could fall to you.
The one thing I would say, as we are looking at it now, under contract, we have Amari, CD Lamb, Simi Fehoko.
Correct.
And then we're talking a whole of the guys that were signed as futures from the practice squad. At the end of the season.
Noah Brown is out. Cedric Wilson's out.
Cedric
Gallup's
Wilson's out. Malik Turner's out as well at the moment as well.
So when you put it in that perspective, then but I don't see it like when you're talking about second round and stuff like that. If anything, I could this year's supposed to be a good year for wide receivers.
No, it's not.
No,
not really.
No.
There's a lot of them. You've got a lot of choice, but in terms of talent gap, you've got a good amount that you could take between the 15 and late 20 area. Then after that, it's a drop off.
Okay, Mike, can I put you on the spot?
Of course you can. That's what we're here for.
See, we were to take a wide receiver at 56. I'm going to give you a choice of 3. Lauren, you might answer this question. I think Paul and I are out of this one, but Lauren, you might be able to answer this one as well. I'm going to give you a choice of 3. So you can have John Mechie, wide receiver, Alabama.
Okay.
You can have David Bell, wide receiver, Purdue. Or you can have George Pickens, wide receiver, Georgia. Who are you going with?
Right. None. What are you after? Is the question. I'm going to ask a question with a question, because Bell and Pickens are both very tall and very streamlined wide receivers, the bigger guys. Where you were talking about John Mechie, yeah?
Yeah.
He's more your prototypical type of wide receiver, something you see within the league a lot of.
Yep.
So I know it's a cop-out answer, but that's the way I would answer it to you. Like Pickens is the tallest guy. He's like 6'4".
I mean, we've not even had the combine yet. So, you know.
I'm completely agreeing with everything that's been said on the comments right now, from DJ Doll to Chris right now. And it's something I am strongly the only thing I will say when it comes to a wide receiver this year is we might pick up someone in free agency, players will get re-signed, but I don't really see ourselves getting a wide receiver in the draft until the late rounds. If anything, what we will probably end up doing is everyone's kind of thinking the same thing. Maybe is we'll definitely draft offensive linemen in the first or second rounds.
Well, this is what I would say to you, that you were talking about the second round, 56 with John Mechie, right? Saying that he's that more prototypical type. The one thing I will say that what he reminds me of is something that the Cowboys are lacking on offense, which is speed. And he's very Tyreek Hill-ish.
I agree with you, Paul, but Jerry loves a splash. And if we've gone offensive line on the first day, he wants to get in that pool.
And Messi for me would be the guy to take, only because when you look at the Cowboys offense, it is quite slow. It is a slow offense.
Wait, what we're talking here? We're talking wide receiver. We're talking offensive line. What we're talking about?
Wide receiver.
Why are we still talking about this?
Yeah, because we are.
Jerry loves
and John Messi. John Messi is he is a very fast guy. He's very Tyreek Hill. That's the one thing I will say.
So is John Ross, but look at him.
John Ross is a different type of receiver, though. He's a straight line runner. And he doesn't have very good hands. But I'm just saying that that's an option you can go down, right? But let's get into the valuation, right? Because as it stands right now, Michael Gallup and who else have we got? We got Dalton Schultz, which I'll bring his valuation up for you as well. And the other guy we wanted to look at is Cedric Wilson, right? Now, Michael Gallup, because obviously with the injury, his valuation at the moment is around $2.6 million a year on the cap. That's what you would take for him to be signed. I mean, like, you don't know how he's going to react after the injury, the type of wide receiver he is, and it's an ACL tear, and the way, you know, like the medical procedures on ACLs have gone nowadays, they're pretty good, and they recover quicker. I don't think he'd be ready for camp, but I think maybe a few weeks into the regular season, you're going to see Michael Gallup. But would you do that? Would you take him for 2.6?
Yeah.
Well, here's
it
the
is.
thing. Well, here's the thing. Wouldn't it be more logical from the Cowboys to like give him more of a bonus incentive? Like, you'll have a certain amount of guarantee, but the rest will be based on bonuses. Because if he can stay fit, or based on what is, like, I know it sounds bad to say that, but the Cowboys are taking a risk by re-signing them if that's the case.
Is the issue?
So would any other team, but the Cowboys would be like saying, we know what the players like, yada yada yada. But yeah, I mean, for 2.6, I mean, I even think we can probably go cheaper than that. But
you probably could, but I'm thinking the valuation is taken in consideration of that.
Well, I'm just saying based on, like, it could be based on a bonus idea where you could probably make that money based more on bonuses.
And the issue being is how he reacts to the surgery, which is the big shroud, if you like, with Michael Gallup, and how do the coaches and the staff see that? You know, how are they valuing that we're saying this is the value, but you don't know. They could be turning around and we know the medical staff in Dallas are like, I mean, they're pretty red hot. So they're going to be all over this, and they can give their opinion. And what I truly believe is that what it comes down to in terms of medical impact is what they get from their medical staff is how they decide if they want to pay that 2.6 million or thereabouts, or whether they decide to abandon the whole idea and leave Michael Gallup hit free agency.
There's no doubt in my mind that Cowboys medical staff, and let's just remember that these are the same guys that helped Jalen Smith actually play football to now. Let's just remember that. So Gallup's in really good hands, and it would not, and it would not cross my mind they are working on Gallup right now to kind of put him through the physical treatments, put him onto whatever, like all the recovery process right now. It would not surprise me because they because they want to make sure and make an evaluation till it comes to that day of when his contract does come up. Do they want to re-sign him or not?
Yeah, definitely.
Am I right in thinking that no one's allowed to examine Gallup's knee until after free agency starts?
Technically
still a Cowboys player.
Yes.
Yeah. The Cowboys can still work on it and still whatever, but till his free agency, no other team.
Basically, my point being that we'll be in a better position to offer what his market value is, knowing the situation of the knee, whereas other teams won't know how the knee is doing, and you never know. The Cowboys could say to him, "Look, Mike, your knee is not ready. It's not lived up to what we thought it was going to be. Stay with us on a team friendly deal." You know, like they're going to be in a far better position to talk to Gallup about his knee than anybody else.
The problem being is it's normally a sort of 8 to 9 month injury anyway. So
yes, correct.
And that's when you start getting back into doing the
to get football ready.
Ramping up a rehab and everything. So I mean, right at this moment, chances are, he went down. What was it, week 15 or so?
Something like that. Yeah, you're talking December.
Middle December. So you're talking about. Maybe week 2 of the season.
Yeah. Middle of August. Possibly. Middle of August, you're maybe starting on the cords properly.
I'm thinking that as from the earliest time, So
You don't know how he's going to react or how deep of a tear it was, because they give them different grades of tear.
And see again, this is just not the whole.
This is what we don't know.
Yeah.
And you don't know when the operation's been as well. I mean,
exactly.
They normally have to wait at least a week for this. You know, the knee obviously swells up to compensate for everything, and they try and wait for some of the swelling to come down before they actually operate on it. So it's how his body reacts quickly enough to reduce the swelling before they actually operate as well. So I would imagine if it was week 15 they went down, it'd probably be week 16, maybe even week 17 where he actually got the got the operation done. And then, you know, even come March 10th, March 16th, whatever the date of the new league year is, and free agency opens, it'll be still too early to actually say how the knee is. Other than the knee's been success. We've managed to operate, and we haven't had to amputate it from below the knee or something like that.
Amputate. Jesus.
Worst case scenario, but you know that's one thing. As long as they're happy, they've managed to sew everything in. They haven't left a Rolex watch on the X-rays or something like that. You know.
Here's one for you though, right? While we're on the subject of receivers, I've got 2 for you. We'll talk about one of them, which I mentioned in the news and updates. The other one, Cedric Wilson, who was having quite a decent season, bit up and down, not completely reliable. But here's one for you. His valuation at 4.2 mil.
It has skyrocketed towards the later part of the season.
And obviously, you can use him on those trick plays.
Exactly. Yep. Although I think his last couple of trick plays that kind of fell short on him may have hindered his valuation a little bit. I do think 4.2 you just said there?
Yes.
Is a bit of a overestimation, I think, personally.
I mean, you could go and get a receiver in the 3rd or 4th round that would cost you a quarter of that.
There we go. I'm talking. This is where we're going now. There we go. Because the other guy that we're looking at, Noah Brown, who is fine. You know, he's not a bad wide receiver. Not completely reliable, inconsistent, but a good special team as $500,000. But that's not a guy you want to be taking out while Gallup's out injured as your 3rd wide receiver. Because Gallup, if we say at latest halfway through the season, wide receiver 1 and 2, we know. The 3rd guy, this is where the problem lies. You just said you don't want to go Cedric Wilson, right? Because that's an expensive valuation. So now we go back to my original comment of, what about a wide receiver at round 2?
There could be some undrafted free agents after the draft. Who knows? I mean, I'm going to use. I know his name might be kind of forbidden for the time being because he's playing with another team right now. The whole Cole Beasley idea. He was undrafted, and look how he became. You know what I mean? Like, who knows? That we be one of those. This is why I keep saying we'll probably end up getting a wide receiver in the later rounds. Like,
it's very possible.
Fifth, sixth, or 7th, because we had Ryan Switzer at one point as well. He was drafted late in the draft. We had other players drafted late in the draft, and they actually turned out good. Like, they contributed well, but obviously they weren't the top 3 wide receiver, within the top 3 of the whole bunch, but they still contributed, you know.
Yeah. Well, here's one for you. We'll talk about probably one of the most expensive free agent for the Cowboys to figure out. And I mentioned him at the news and updates was Dalton Schultz. Now they're looking into the franchise tag part. The issue being is his valuation right now is at 11 million. And the franchise tag for a tight end at the moment is 12.
Yeah. See, my problem with that is that means your backup tight end is earning $8 million.
And this is where we're going. Yeah.
No, so it's a lot of money for tight end.
Yeah, we are wasting a lot of money on just 2 players in the one position where it should be you're really well, you will use double tight ends in certain substitutes, but you're never going to use both of them all the time on the field. That's is an expensive way to run that, and I'm sure Jerry and Steven are well on top of that. I mean, because at the time when we gave Blake Jarwen that contract, we thought he was going to be the guy, but injuries and whatever, it's kind of took its toll. And Dalton Schultz is kind of outperformed our expectations, kind of like what Terrence Steele has kind of done this season. Like Dalton Schultz has been a savior in the position. Like we kind of thought we were going to struggle at tight end, but no, we haven't. So
yep.
I think at the same time, though. Like sorry, but at the same time,
it's all right.
Schultz does.
I'm putting my feet up on this one.
I think Schultz deserves a good payday after the work he's put in for those 2 seasons for sure. But I just really struggle to think how, if we were to afford them, where does that leave Blake and vice versa? If we don't sign, I don't know, man. I really don't know.
I think we'll be looking at Jerry and Stephen will be talking to Blake Jarwen and seeing if they'll take a pay cut.
Because he is in a reduced role now.
Yeah, he's on a reduced role.
Blake Jarwen, right? I can do this for you. What if I could save you on a restructure with Blake Jarwen, 1.8 million on his contract? Does that convince you to keep him? Although restructuring will tail up the back end of his contract. But the issue with me going back to my original comment about taking a wide receiver in the second round is if you don't sign Dalton Schultz, right, and it's going to cost you, say, 11 on the cap. Graham, as he said, Blake Jarwin's already on the hook for 8. That's a lot of money. But let's say they don't keep Schultz. Now, your options out there at the moment, as it stands, would be Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Blake Jarwen, and Simi Fehoko. That's your options going out there now.
So, well, Simi Fehoko is unproven. He's not really touched the field.
This is where we're going. And you've got nothing behind him at tight end. So, going back to when we were talking about
Sean McQueen.
He's not going to be. I like McEwen, but he's still got a long way to go. For me, I feel he's still got more development he needs to do.
Here's the thing, though, mate. We said the exact same thing about Schultz when we brought him in.
Yeah, and you know, it would be sad to see Schultz go because when we had Dave Hellman on, I made this comment that it always seems to be the Cowboys, the ones that draft these later round tight ends, work them for years, develop them, and then release them back into the league. It seems to be the way we do it.
Yeah,
you look at Jeff Swaim that's playing in Tennessee at the moment. He obviously was a big part of their offense this season.
Yeah.
Obviously not as high powered as Dalton Schultz has been, but the problem certainly in those days is that we had Jason Witten as a progress stopper more than anything else.
Yeah.
We don't have that this year, but yes, we're because of the effect of COVID and on the league revenue. You know, obviously the salary cap has only gone up to where it should have been last year.
Yeah.
And you know, again, you could argue that we should have got that done 2 years ago, and we would have had more money available this year. But we just got to. We've got to play with what we've got, and I mean,
yeah,
I think we've got decisions to make. I mean,
Yeah, and
Is
Blake
there a-
Jarwin is a tricky one to cut because
well,
if we were to cut him, he'd put 2 million in a dead cap spot.
just to add, sorry, Graham. I'm just kind of looking through the comments here, and we're having quite a few mixed reactions towards the whole tight end position, and I do tend to agree in terms of the run blocking. In terms of blocking, both Jarwin and Schultz are not the best at blocking. I think we can all agree on that. But in terms of a threat going downfield, both of them can be that. But Schultz right now seems to be the more proactive type of guy we've got going for that. So
falling over slowly is how I call it.
So honestly, like, and who's it made the comment about drafting the tight end? Somebody mentioned
this is where I was just about to go. This was what I was trying to bring it around about. That if you don't keep Jarwin, we know that if we don't keep Schultz, we release him into the league. Blake Jarwin, we know he's great up the seam as a seam runner, red hot. So that's his one trick. He can't block. So now tight end is a big issue. We've spoken about the O-line being an issue. How do you help your O-line? Get a decent blocking tight end that can also catch. If Schultz goes, tight end becomes a priority position.
Yep.
I mean, I want just at this point, I want to remind everybody that we've still got 94's agent on the phone and it's ringing, and he wants to be paid.
Do you want to go down that road?
We can't keep everybody.
Well, I think Randy Gregory is definitely somewhere we need to talk about for sure.
Okay. Can I interest you on his valuation? And his valuation is based. Me and Lorne. No. You'd be quite interested in this. His valuation is based on obviously what's happened in the past. But you could probably get him to sign a contract for 3.8 a year.
What?
Yeah, that's his valuation right now.
No.
Surely not.
That's
and the league
low.
average for his and the league average right now for his position playing at his level is at 7.9.
So he's
Randy Gregory. He's at least $10 million.
If you said $5, I would say like if it was going based on history, you said at least 5, then I'd be like, makes sense. But I tend to agree with Graham. It's like I was expecting the numbers to be like $10 million or something like that.
No. You got to remember that against the cap this year, against the cap in 2021, it was only $1 million.
Yeah, I mean, so educate me on this one. So if we do get Randy on like that cheap deal and stuff like that, because that seems to be the whole biggest talking point is about his evaluation stuff like that. How do we see our salary cap work if we do get him sent to like that 3.8?
3.8 is what he's valued at, obviously due to past history.
Is that based per year, or is that based
per year, depending on
say for example
how they structure it?
Right. Okay. So how does that like if we were to get him on that, how does that leave us for the rest of the cap? That's what I'm trying to think now. For
depends how they spread it out on how they do it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. You don't know, like that's what they're saying. It would be on average over a number of years. It doesn't talk about how it's structured or what incentives or what's guaranteed.
There's going to be a market for Randy Gregory.
It
would be a minor miracle if the Cowboys could get Gregory on 3.8.
And I don't know about you, but like as much as I can't see Randy going to another team after what the Cowboys have done for him by sticking
they've stuck through it,
like they stuck by him for everything. We actually ourselves we were guilty of it ourselves, saying Randy has no future, blah 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 blah. Then he's finally turned over his sleeves, and now we're starting to see that, and we're like, yeah, you know what, we were wrong. Let's keep him at Dallas. So. I don't think like from Randy's standpoint, I don't think he would want to go anywhere else because he wouldn't have that support tree like he has at Dallas. Like if he was to go in our team, those other teams might not treat him the way, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's none of that mental health support, none of the programs to keep on track and that as well. So that's what I'm kind of wondering with us.
I brought up the point when we talked about during the season, and I'm going to bring it up again. In 5 years, Randy Gregory has made $5.7 million in his career.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
He wants paid. It's a long life after football, and I bet he wants paid.
Here's a crazy one. Go on.
Here's a great comment. Having Quinn back may come into consideration for Randy as well.
Agreed. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because he got those guys fired up. But a big one for me when I was looking through it is I think about obviously, positions of need. So you can try and fill those gaps before the draft. Wide receiver was the one I was looking at. Tight end was another. But I think a big one at the moment, because as it stands, is we've only got 2 guys playing the position, is linebacker. So gone in to have a look at Leighton Vander Esch, who started to turn it on towards the end of the year, looking much better. Would you consider keeping him, even if it's on a 1-year deal, for 4.7 on the cap? Or are you cutting ties there because of the injury history and that it wasn't a full, you didn't get a full season of production out of him?
For 4.7.
That's a reduction, is it not?
It is.
Because he must be on around $5 million now.
Yes. Sorry. Against the cap this year, he was, it was 3.8.
I'd probably move on, to be perfectly honest.
My only thought, Paul, is the point that you keep bringing up that we're thin at linebacker.
Is the issue.
Like
because
Jabril Cox is
Jabril Cox is the big one, but obviously he's injured. So we are thin at linebacker, but when you think of the amount of draft capital they've spent on linebacker position, are they going to have to do it again?
I mean, if they don't bring in, if they don't keep Vander Esch and struggle to bring somebody else in, you're effectively saying that Micah Parsons is a linebacker next year. You're restricting him. You don't have the depth to play anybody else. Do you get what I mean? So if they keep Vander Esch, at least they can build on that and use Parsons as the utility player.
I mean, I generally do think Vanders will probably get more money elsewhere as well, to be honest. Like, they'll probably see him more of having that, like, they'll probably utilize him to a more certain extent. But, I mean, there's some really good linebackers coming out this year, I think. Like,
the linebacker position, off ball, and depending really what you're trying to do, it's not too bad. And there's a lot that you can jiggery pokery with some of it too.
I would say not comparison to last year, because there was so many linebackers you would love to have, like, coming to Dallas, and we got 2 of them, obviously, with Cox and Parsons.
Yeah.
Could Christian Harris be an option, Mike?
It very much could be.
I like the idea.
I notice you're picking a lot of Alabama guys, mine, Gray.
Only because they get half their roster drafted every.
I know. Yeah, they do have the most players in the NFL.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm all for having some Scottish pride in the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh yeah.
David Ojaba.
Yeah.
So if anyone doesn't know who David Ojaba is, he plays for Michigan, and he's born in Nigeria, but he's lived in Scotland since he was what 3 years old, pretty much.
Yeah, something like that.
But we consider him Scottish, and he considers himself Scottish. So, but he's having a fantastic year at Michigan. And Lauren, what was the question that you asked to the draft?
Well, one of the things I'd asked was, obviously he's an edge player. So if we weren't able to sign Randy, heaven forbid, and if Ojabo drops, to 24, would that be an option? Because he's certainly got the pass rushing skills. He's a little bit. He needs to toughen up a bit against the run, but I'm pretty sure that if we don't get Randy Gregory, then you're almost guaranteeing that Parsons will be an edge player. If you got, because you need somebody to match up against Tank Lawrence on the other side, so that if you've got Gregory, you can have Gregory and you can have Tank Lawrence, and then that allows you the luxury of having Parsons playing off the ball linebacker and maybe blitzing,
because you need to make him free. Yeah.
If we don't get Gregory back, then Parsons probably needs to become a full-time edge. And then you're talking that we're needing to go all the way again on linebacker this year.
Because Keanu Neal, as fine as he looked, I think towards him trying to play more into the box, put some of the weight on. I just think that experiment, as good as it was looking to begin with, it didn't pan out in the end. So he's not a guy I'm looking to go down. Could I interest you in keeping both Brent Urban and Carlos Watkins, both of them, for less than $1 million?
Yeah.
Well, you put it down like that, then yeah.
Yeah.
Because if under the evaluation, they both can. But an interesting one for me was Doris Armstrong, who started
that
to like
old chestnut. That old chestnut.
Yeah. I've always been standoffish with him because he always comes into camp and looks red hot and then just disappears in the regular season. But that didn't happen this year.
Well, I just hope that's not the same case with Osa DeRizua, to be honest, because he had a fantastic preseason season, but we hardly actually saw some of that during the whole regular season.
Well, he hit the rookie wall, didn't he? The first half of the season was fine, but then the back, he hit that rookie wall that we always see. But looking at Doris Armstrong, 5 sacks, 3 tackles for a loss. Well, we got 2 pass defense, 22 solo, 14 assists, and he played less than half the snaps. Could give him a bigger role, but you can, on his evaluation, you're looking at it, 3.6. It's tempting. But it depends what type of guy you're going to get, because the issue I got is the safety position as well, because we seemed to crack the code last year with the safety position. And it starts for me with 2 guys, Jaron Kearse and Malik Hooker. And this is where it breaks your heart, because what are you going to do yet? Malik Hooker, I'm very tempted on this. $2.5 million.
Yes.
Yeah, because he was starting to come along. I think at around that price on his valuation, I think you could make that deal. The issue is when you get to Jaron Kearse, and this does break my heart, because I don't think, although I do believe they need to make him a priority to somehow keep him, depending on how. This is where it gets dicey. Jaron Kearse is just shy of $6 million on his valuation. And he's turned it right on, especially when you think about this, that the Cowboys this year had him for less than $1 million on the cap.
But see,
that's how well he played.
According to Over the Cap, he played 88% of the snaps. So he's a full-on starter. So you've got to pay for talent.
Especially as well when you think that you say he played 88% of the stats, he's a star. Didn't even start the season off that way.
No.
It wasn't. It took the first quarter of the season for the coaching staff to figure out that he was a tight end killer, and that's how they were going to use him and utilize him.
I mean, to throw a blanket over it, we've got Kearse, Kazee, and Hooker all in free agency. We need to keep at least one, because see if we don't keep at least one, we're starting again. And what's the point of keeping?
We're back to the Cowboys safety problem.
Yeah, Yeah. What's the point in keeping Quinn if we're going to let all these chess pieces go?
So you don't keep Jaron Curse, and this is why I'm asking this question. In the first round, right, you get the chance. He falls to you. Do you pull the trigger? You can take one of the inside offensive line guys or Kyle Hamilton, who's fallen to you. I at that moment, I'm going down the safety road because Kyle Hamilton will completely change your defense. He is that good.
It's the Cowboys' history of drafting safeties.
Yeah.
I get it. There's absolute logic in it, but I just, there's that voice going, yeah, but they don't do that. So
yeah. I mean, I got other options because I've watched a couple of guys, and I'm like, man, you could take this guy, in the third round, which is still a push with the Cowboys, mind, but it does seem like that would be a good option. But yeah, they were the guys really I was looking at. The only other guys I wanted to ask you about, we spoke about Noah Brown, so the special teams guys. Jake Mcquaid, who I think did a great job. I think he came in, hit the floor perfectly. Brian Anger.
He's been great.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want me to find a valuation on him?
Go for it.
All right, his valuation.
Brian Anger was fantastic for us.
So, so he is more. He is more than a guy playing at his level with his, at his rate. He is valued at more than. You have to pay over the odds for him at 2.7, which I think for punter is.
That's probably what bloody Greg Zerling's on right now.
I mean, I know punters are people too, but
they are.
Could we not just go and get Niswander or something like that for half the value?
Yeah,
Niswander's under contract. Niswander is still under contract with us, so.
Well, that's an even bigger temptation.
Yeah, the only other guy I was really thinking about was Maurice Kennedy, and I know people are like cornerback, but think about what he was worth to you on special teams, and he made more special team tackles than any other player on the roster, and his evaluation is only coming in at league minimum.
We liked Kennedy at the start of the season, if I remember right.
Yeah, we did.
We thought he could make inroads as a corner. So, yeah, if he wants to come and build on it, certainly, absolutely.
Mm. But I mean, they were the guys really I was looking at. But it's more of a point of who you guys would take. So at the moment, the way I see it is you're going to keep maybe Malik Turner. I don't know, but for me, safety is a problem because what do you do? Because you can only keep. For me, you're only keeping Curse or Hooker. You're not keeping both because that's a lot of money they'd have to invest.
Yep.
So now safety's a problem. We just said now we're not keeping Keanu Neal or Leighton Van Der Esch. So linebacker is an issue. And looking at the costs of what you do with wide receiver, obviously now wide receiver becomes an issue. You can keep Gallup, but there's this huge gap there. And it really revolves around what they decide to do at tight end. Because if they do nothing with that, tight end is an issue. Linebackers, we just said, is already an issue. And wide receiver is something you need to look at too, tied in with safety.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose it would be, in answering all these questions, it would be nice to know how they're going to restructure and who they're going to restructure because it's bound to happen.
They will do that, yeah.
I mean, we're over the cap as it is. So,
yeah.
It's difficult to know how much we're going to have to play with, especially if we keep Randy Gregory.
Yeah, and here we go. The issue is obviously, Randy Gregory is priority as well. That there's a lot going on here, and this goes back to what I was saying during the fan run, is that it was a talent roster this year. There's over the next couple of years, depending on how these guys progress, depends on, like your Golstons, for instance, how they come along depends on how well your roster is going to be. But going through contracts like with DeMarcus Lawrence, for instance, against the cap this year is 27 mil. That puts him as the second defensive end in the NFL. But I can restructure. I can get you a restructure that gives you around about 12 million back on the cap. Would you do that? Or what you can also do, which I'm not a big fan of, is if you made him a post-June cut, he'll put 8 million on your dead cap, but he'll put 19 million back in your cap. That's how you get back in savings.
Remind me who it is we're talking about.
DeMarcus Lawrence. Or do you just keep him and keep because of what he's worth? Because if you do cut him to make the cap space, now you need to go and find yourself a right defensive end.
Yep. I think we're going to we'll probably restructure him now. I mean, I don't like this restructuring. I mean,
I know, yeah, because it puts it all on the back end.
Absolutely,
we talk about Tyron Smith. I mean, it was a team friendly deal when he signed it back at the end of his rookie contract.
Yeah.
But every year we seem to have converted money into signing bonus that then gets apportioned over X number of years. I think this is his last season with us, and then there's void years on his contract the next couple of years, which again kick in next year. So there'll be a massive charge against the cap for him next year, and potentially we either need to sign him to another deal or say goodbye to him and let him go off into the sunset. So you're almost at the same thing where we joked about the Eagles having to pay for Carson Wentz to play for the Indianapolis Colts. We might have something similar where we're paying Tyron to be playing suiting up for God knows who.
Because there is obviously the tank issue. And the other one is, of course, as well, is the Amari Cooper issue. That I think this team is better with him than without him. But he is costing a lot of money on the cap for what he is. And this year, in 2022, they can if they cut him outright as soon as the season finishes, is 6 million in dead cap, but 16 million in cap savings. And they'll get that for the next few years too.
Yep.
See, again, I go back to when we're talking about getting under the cap. I go back to the point I keep making about Randy Gregory. So, according to Over the Cap, 4 teams have $58 million in cap space. Right as it stands right now, 4 teams have at least $58 million. Chargers, Bengals, Jaguars, and Dolphins. Are you telling me that not one of those teams is going to offer Randy Gregory $18 million?
The next issue is, you've got teams
at least one of those teams could phone and say, right, Randy, I can write all sorts of names on this check, all sorts of numbers on this check. What's it going to be? Because he's the top defensive end pass rusher available. And you may not necessarily get one in the draft. And I just think with these teams sitting with all that money there, if they go and get Gregory, that's one less need on day one of the draft where they can go and supplement something else.
Yeah. So
I find it really, really difficult that we're going to keep Randy Gregory.
So now going back to what we were saying about all the rest of it, when you look at the free agent parts that are going, because I can't see them keeping Connor Williams either. A lot of people are saying, I want inside offensive lineman. Totally agree. But if the guy falls to you like a tight end or a safety in the first round, looking at that now with what could potentially happen, does your mind slightly change off that idea?
I mean,
when you look, not so much about team need, but team depth. When you think there's no linebackers, no safeties, and no wide receivers, and Dalton Schultz goes, no tight end.
I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. I take a very light view of college football. I watch barely any of it, to be perfectly honest. This is when I do my college stuff now, when the Cowboys season is over. So, like you're saying, Mike, Linderbaum and Green will have gone by 24. I have no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
So, do I want to stretch for an interior just to make it happen? No.
Especially when, with the interior depth isn't too bad. You can probably wait and get a guy not as talented as those first round guys, but you can get something close to with what you've got on the inside offensive lineman.
It's a difficult one. I'm glad I don't have to make the decision. Yeah,
no, but I mean, just the point of putting that all together with free agency is everybody seems to think that it's black and white. The obvious solution is inside offensive lineman, but once you break it down and you go through the free, which was the idea of doing this one, so that now moving on, we can just start going through positions and talking about them. It's just to highlight that it isn't as simple. That when you start breaking it down and you look at the pieces that are disappearing, the cap space that the Cowboys have, and the valuation of those players, it's just not as simple as, oh, there's gaps in the offensive line, let's just fill it.
And see, for anybody thinking we'll just trade up, you're probably going to have to give up.
They don't have the capital.
Exactly. You're probably going to have to give up 2023's first rounder to do it.
Yeah.
So
and the issue you've got is you've got division rivals that we have. So the NFC East, who are picking high in the draft, and the Eagles with 3 first-round drafts.
Yeah. And did the Eagles not lose did the Eagles not lose a guard today? Did Eagles guard retire?
Brandon
Knight, not Knight.
No.
That would be something. Yeah, that would be something interesting if he was there.
Let me.
There we go.
Brandon Brooks.
There we go.
After 10 years. So, I mean, straight away, you're looking 15, 16. They're all over Green. You know, so does he get to 24? Probably not. Linderbaum, probably the same. So what you're saying is valid, Mike. I mean, fair enough. We need the interior line, but if it's not there, don't reach for it. I mean, unless they pull out a Travis Frederick out of nowhere. But what are the odds of that, really?
It is just the point of doing it is that, you know, when they don't, or if they don't draft an offensive lineman in the first round, people are just going to be like, well, what the hell is going on? And it's to highlight the bigger, the full scope of what you're trying to do. And then once you get into that, you're talking now about draft sequencing, which is probably more important than your first round pick, is the sequence of which you go down for the next 2 days.
Yep.
And that's what it boils down to. That you could take a guy in the second round and people will be going, and you know, say they take a wide receiver in the first round or a tight end, for instance, in the first round, and people go up in arms about it. It's just here's your big picture. What are you playing with? That they haven't got the capital to be spending to retain all of these guys. It would be lovely to, but it's just not possible. So the next round that you go into is in the draft. What are you prioritizing?
Yeah. I mean, I suppose the other alternative is that they speak to somebody with a high cap and say, could they prize a centre or a guard out for a 3rd or 4th round pick? You know, somebody that's already in the league, and somebody needs to get under the cap. And I know the Raiders had cap issues and had to get rid of a lot of their offensive line.
They had to get rid of one of their, I think it was an offensive lineman, which was someone I actually thought that could have been someone we could have picked up. But yeah, I think. Yeah,
but do you see what I mean now? When I was saying, well, I was trying to say to you about wide receiver in the second round, that's what immediately the first thing is to say no. But the point is that, well, hold on, let me break it down for you. And then when you break it down and you look at it, you go, oh, right, yeah, okay. There is something more to it than just simply that.
You only have to go back, 2 years, a year ago. We weren't too excited about CeeDee Lamb for what we needed.
Paul's reaction to that show was quite
exactly priceless.
I always say to you, but I always say, just have your mind open for the draft. Have it open
Especially-
because it's going to happen.
especially when it's Jerry.
Yeah.
I don't think many of us saw the Micah Parsons pick.
I did.
Either.
Yeah. Who was it who came on? Oh, Mickey Spagnola. When we
Yeah,
had Mickey Spagnola on for the draft show, he was going, telling you. And who was it who was with us? Was it Derek Eagleton as well?
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Derek.
And Derek was
Yeah.
going, really? You fit? And he's going, I'm telling you. And lo and behold,
Yeah.
don't ever go against the Spags. That's all I'm saying.
Never go against bags.
Yeah. And we'll try and get him back on, actually. I'll have a word with him and see what we can do. But we do have some guests coming on during the draft show, so it won't just be us rambling on. But that is this week's the free agent review. Give us your comments after the show. Let us know who you want to keep or who you don't mind releasing. And next week we'll get into positional reviews, and we've got it all coming up. Mock drafts a lot. Scouting reports, so don't worry, you are in safe hands here. But if you are going to go to a game next year, make sure you book it with Cowboys Experience. They have the meet and greets, tailgate parties, game day packages, hotels, a lot. So of course, make sure you use the booking code UK Cowboys, because then you get
Free stuff.
Free stuff.
You get free stuff.
free
And chocolate
stuff,
pudding.
man. Yeah. So yes, we have been watching and scouting college football all season. So draft boards are going up. I will share them with everybody so you can have a look. But that is going to be next week's show. We are only on Thursdays now. There's no reason for a post-game show on a Tuesday unless we get some.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately. But for people going to the draft, the Super Bowl party, we'll see you there. Keep those questions coming in for there. But from myself and the guys, we'll see you all next week. And to answer your question, Chris, yes, you do. It's for everybody. You just got to let them know where it came from.
Yep.
And I'm going to let these guys sign off, and we'll see you all next Thursday. Stay safe and enjoy the championship weekend.
Catch you later, guys. Have a good one.
Yeah,
See you
have a
next
good week, guys. Enjoy the championship weekend, knowing that the Green Bay Packers have had the best quarterbacks for the best part of 30 years and only had 2 Super Bowls out of it.
Yes.
And
I'm going to send that to my dad.
Here's an interesting fact if you want to go down that road. Aaron Rodgers won the same amount of playoff games this year as Dak.
All we'll
Yeah.
see is anyone but 49ers. Anyone but them.
All right. See you all
Anyone
next week,
but
guys.
49ers. See you later, guys.